Happy New Year, kids! I hope 2023 finds you with warm cockles. I have for you a poignant and profound episode to start the year. We are going to talk about the history of playing cards. We are going to talk about euchre and the family history. We are going to talk about breaking drumsticks. We are going to talk about an ingenious new method I have developed that I think is better for personal development than New Year's resolutions. And I'll tell you all about it on the other side. Hello. You're listening to the John Huff Podcast. Oh, yay. Okay, here's what I found out. Well, all of you have been off over the past couple of weeks having your little parties, getting all wrapped up in your debauchery and your fornications. You've been out there having a good time. I've been here in the podcaster's chair, trying to figure out the answers to the big questions, okay? You know, the work does not stop. I may not have produced an episode, but that does not mean I was not slaving away, doing the work, where you're all out there passed out, staggering down the street, little party hats on. I've been digging into the human condition. I've been looking into the history. I've been trying to answer the big questions, including, but not limited to, why are there jokers in a deck of playing cards? This is the hard-hitting stuff. We're not screwing around in 2023. Why are there jokers in a deck of playing cards? There weren't always. Okay, the history of playing cards is actually rather fascinating, and I've been looking at it. And as far as I can ascertain, the conventional wisdom says jokers appeared in standard decks of playing cards probably in the 1860s, possibly in the 1850s. And this was an invention of the Americans. So thank you, America, for adding jokers to the deck of playing cards. Why did they do that? Apparently, jokers were added specifically for the game of euchre. Now, if you're Ontario born and bred, euchre is very dear to your heart, okay? Apparently, euchre is played in parts of the world, but it seems to be really an Ontario thing. So you meet people from other parts of Canada. A lot of times, they don't play euchre or don't really get the fascination with euchre, and I feel for those people. You know, cools my cockles to know that they don't have this intimate connection with the game of euchre that so many of us do. I played a version, an East Coast version, over the holidays called 45s, which is similar in that it has similar Trump approaches. Well, the similarities aren't all that great now that I think about it, but you bid on your tricks, and Trump works slightly differently, but it's in the euchre sphere, the euchre sphere. And it was interesting. Okay, but euchre is euchre. And if you're an Ontario person, a lot of the time, euchre is religion to you. And apparently, for some reason, it wasn't good enough as it was. And the Americans added jokers to the deck to count as the highest trump, even higher than your right and left bower. Jokers became the highest trump. And then from there, jokers were incorporated into other games, usually as wild cards. The joker is wild. So you see that in poker. You see that in, I think, canasta maybe, and different types of rummy, perhaps. I don't play a lot of different card games, but apparently jokers came from the Americans in the 1860s, and there you go. Already in the year 2023, we are breaking ground. We are learning stuff. Playing cards came initially, apparently, from the Far East, perhaps the Middle East, And the earliest references come at around 1000 AD. And then as Europe began to trade more and have more access to markets in the Middle East and the Far East, trading cards began to work their way along the chain, right? So by the 1300s, you begin to get references to playing cards appearing in Europe. And at the time, these were luxury items, okay? Your pack of playing cards had to be drawn by hand, all right? So it cost money, and it took a lot of time to create these cards. And so playing cards were like something for the rich people, a luxury item, right? So rich folks would sit around with their handcrafted deck of playing cards and play their rich people games. And the poor guys were playing like dice, gambling down in the mud holes, you know. But then eventually, with printing technology in the 1400s, these things began to be produced more cheaply and more easily. So there's more of them in the market, right? But different regions, different countries had their own sets of cards, okay? They were similar. I think you would have like the royal court section, and then different countries didn't have maybe 2s or didn't have maybe 10s, or they had different suits. You know, we recognize the kind of what they call the international suits of spades, hearts, clubs, diamonds, right? But there's something called the Latin suits. And so if you look at decks of cards from Italy or from Spain, you will see the Latin suits, which are cups, coins, swords, and clubs. It's interesting how this all became standardized in weird ways over time. The suits we know are derived from French decks of cards. And what happens was, in the 1400s or whatever, Germany was like your leading producer of cards because they had the printing press and that kind of thing. But eventually, the French developed these stenciling techniques, and the suits that they had, clubs, spades, hearts, diamonds, very simple shapes, very easy to stencil. And so the market became flooded with cards of the French type because they could be very, very easily reproduced, right? And so there was a proliferation, more people were using them, and they became kind of the standard suits. And there was some interesting stuff going on, like the face cards, for example, your king, your queen, your jack. If they had a queen, a lot of the Latin decks do not have queens. They have 2 different types of jack. Jacks used to be called knaves. So when you had your deck of cards, there was confusion because there would be a K on the king, there would be a K on the knave, and you got confused between what was the king, what was the knave. And then for a while there was the KN symbol, which was the knave. Knave being a court servant or possibly a prince, depending on where you were coming from. Very confusing, so they changed that to the jack so that you could have a J on your card instead of a K, and then there was less confusion, all right? But the face cards used to be full body portraits. So you would get dealt your cards, and the king would be a full-length king, head at the top, feet at the bottom, queen, whatever. Great, except you got to know what your opponent had in his hand because you'd see him flipping the cards around. Well, he flipped 2 cards, so he's got 2 face cards over there so he could get the head up on top and know what card he's got. That became a method of cheating, and it became an unfair advantage to people to be able to see people flipping their cards around so they could see what they had in their hands, right? So that's why now you get face cards with 2 faces on them, and right side up, upside down, whatever. You get the 2 images, king up, king down, 2 heads, so that no matter how you pick it up, you can see what it is. Because people were cheating, folks. And then if you look at most decks of cards, the Ace of Spades is a very ornate and elaborately designed card. Pull up any deck of cards right now. I'll wait. Look at the Ace of Spades, compare it to the Ace of Hearts, Ace of Diamonds, Ace of Clubs. You will find that 9 times out of 10, the Ace of Spades is very ornate and elaborate. Why is that? Why should the ace of spades have that position of grandeur and privilege? Well, back in the day, like 1700s, 1800s, cards were a big deal. Cards were big business, all right? Government wanted a piece of the big business. So they required that a duty be paid on the decks of cards that were manufactured, and your manufacturing, your licensing information had to be printed on a card. And eventually that became the ace of spades, okay? Because usually the ace of spades was the top card in the deck. So pick the first card. You got to put all your manufacturing and printing information on that card. It was typically the ace of spades. And so it became this very ornate card with all this printing on it. And in many cases, it still is. So you pick up the ace of spades, you'll see that it's elaborately designed. And that is tradition. It goes back to taxation. There was a point in time in England where you couldn't produce an ace of spades. You had to buy the ace of spades from the government, from the British government, the stamping office. They had stamped aces of spades. And when you purchased one, that meant that you had paid your duty on manufacturing that deck of cards. Oh yeah, they taxed the ace of spades. Couldn't make one, had to buy one. And if you forged one and got caught, you could be sentenced to death. Oh yeah, which might be why they call the ace of spades the death card. Oh yeah, kids, it's all happening here. 2023 on the John Huff Podcast. So the jokers were created for euchre. What is euchre? There's a great history of euchre too. Where does it come from? There are all these different variations. I talked about 45s. Different regions have different rules on playing euchre. The traditional wisdom, the conventional, the accepted wisdom is that euchre is a derivative of a German game called Euchrespiel. Euchrespiel, that's Juckerspiel. Spiel being the Deutsch word for game, and Spieler being the Deutsch verb to play. Ich spiele jeden Tag Fußball. I play football every day. Ich spiele, I play. Euchrespiel. I don't know what the euchre part is. Jucker. There was a French game called Euchre. Euchre. I don't know if they relate. They probably do on some level, but the scuttlebutt says German immigrants brought this game Euchrespiel to America, and that is what euchre is based on. And some people say that they called these cards jokers as a derivative of euchre. So if you're an English speaker and you see this word euchre, you say jucker. And so maybe they called the jokers juckers or jokers. I don't know. This is just what's out there on the World Wide Web that I've been digging into. But there's a fascinating history here. The history of playing cards. Interesting, right? But I played some euchre over the holidays. I'm a big euchre fan. I'm a big euchre player. Euchre was a rite of passage in my house. Not just my house. I think euchre was a rite of passage in many houses in this part of the world, where you grew up, and we had, at one point in time, pretty substantial family gatherings, you know? Be a lot of people. Everybody was a card player. Inevitably, one or two tables would get going, and it looked like so much fun. As a 4 or 5-year-old kid, you wanted to be with the adults doing adult things, and what they were doing was playing euchre. And so, from a very, very small age, young age, you would sit on your dad's lap, or your uncle's lap, or somebody's lap that you were small enough to fit on, and you would watch them playing the game, and you would learn by osmosis the basics of how these cards work and what's going on, right? And then eventually you got a little bit older, you began to understand a little bit more. Your dad or your uncle or whoever, they would be holding their cards in front of you, you'd be sitting on the lap, and then they would begin to ask you, which card would you play? Which one do you play next? Do you have to follow suit? Do you have to play in sequence? Can you trump this? What did your partner play? Should you play this on that? And eventually you would begin to get the tactics. You begin to understand the rules, and you're just waiting waiting. Oh, happy day for the opportunity to sit in and play your own hand with the big people. And heaven help you if you trumped your partner's ace. That was grounds for dismissal. He's not ready. Send him back to the minors. Oh, shame. Oh, dark hour. When you're reduced to sitting on your dad's lap again because you trumped your partner's ace and you're not ready for the table yet. But it was great. A wonderful feeling, a wonderful rite of passage. When, at long last, you could sit at the euchre table and play and actually hold your own and do okay. And then you watch it go through the generations. This rite of passage, playing euchre. I wondered where the jokers came from. This is where I got to over the holidays, But the history of playing cards is rather fascinating, actually. And I enjoyed playing euchre, and it was fun to do that over the holidays. I had a good holiday. Did you have a good holiday? Did you have a good couple of weeks there? You know that I like the Christmas season. You know that I like New Year's Day is my favorite day of the year. New Year's Day being your favorite day of the year creates a problem for the next 364. Got your favorite out of the way right off the top. It's like, does it go downhill from here? I don't know. But I like what I perceive to be the peace, the tranquility of New Year's Day. And I love a clean sheet. I love a fresh start. I love a blank slate. I had a good time New Year's Eve. I was playing L-Town every year, puts on a big New Year's bash in the park. And I got to play it this time around. It's been canceled due to COVID, of course, the last couple of times. I got to play it this year with Lindsay and the Lonelies. Alternative country. People I really enjoy, people I love, music I really like. And we were added to the bill. And it's a big deal, all right? The local press was reporting the following day that upwards of 15,000 people were in the park that night, my friends. I don't know if there were any 15,000s when we played. I think that's like a collective number kind of coming and going that they estimate. But we had a crowd. I can say sincerely that we had a crowd of thousands. And that's nice. It's nice, man. It is nice to play for a crowd of thousands. And it's always special to me. It's always poignant to me to look at it. And I did as I was playing this show. To look out at this crowd of thousands and remember 10 or so years ago when I played the first gig with Hiroshima Hearts. After not performing in front of an audience for probably close to 20 years. It was really freaking terrifying, man. Our first gig was at this little club, 30 to 40 close friends, not a threatening audience whatsoever. But I was an absolute basket case in prepping for that show. I was so intimidated, so self-conscious, so nervous to play a gig because I hadn't done it in so freaking long, and I was racked with self-doubt and anxiety. I remember packing up my drums that day, and things wouldn't fold properly, and I was all anxious and antsy and short-tempered. And I got to the club and I was freaking shaking. Just shaking with nerves to play that gig, man. And it went away. As soon as we got up on stage and I sat behind the kit, I was like, this light bulb went off. I was like, wait a minute, yeah, this is fun. I forgot the part where it's fun. But it was fun, 10 years later, to be walking out on a stage and see literally an audience of thousands, which is so much fun to see, and not be nervous remotely. And that is the effect of 10 years and hundreds of shows. And I always just am reminded when I walk out into a scene like that, where it feels like there should be some pressure, man. Like there's a big audience here. It's a big night. Feels like it's a big deal and there should be pressure and there's just no nerves. I have nerves now I have anxiety. The legacy of my COVID anxiety now manifests in feeling nervous about load-in and parking. Not the show and not performing, but for some reason, if I don't know the lay of the land for load-in or where I'm supposed to park or how that works, I get really, really anxious about that. Disproportionately anxious about that. And that's what anxiety does. If it is not vanquished from your system, it latches onto something. And usually it latches onto something you can't control or don't know. Anxiety is phantom fear. Anxiety is not being in control. And so what I can't control going into a new venue or a new situation is what the load-in looks like and where you park. So I latch onto that. To a certain extent, I can control performance. That's not a problem. I'm a pro-ish. I prepare. I'm ready. And I've played so many freaking shows now that I'm very comfortable on stage. And it is great to be reminded of that. Walking out on a night like that with the band, to sit down at the drums and drive that bus and be in front of an audience like that and not feel nervous is such a cool feeling, man. And it reminds you about this notion of incremental improvement over time. We're talking New Year's resolutions right now. And everybody wants to go 0 to 60 overnight. Not sustainable, not easy to do. But then you look at starting at being an absolute basket case playing for 30 people, and then being utterly comfortable 10 years later playing for, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people. And it's simply the product of time and experience. The first solo episode of this podcast was released 3 years ago this week. And I can't listen to it. I can't listen to it because the content was good. The delivery was so flat because I was nervous and didn't know what I was doing. And if I had waited until I had developed some sort of idiom to try to do that, I never would have done it at all. You know what I mean? It's like you need to begin. You need to start. You need to face a fear and you need to be lousy. And eventually, over time with practice, you get better. And that's the key to resolutions, kids. Don't make it black or white. Don't make it all or nothing. The problem with resolutions is that they are structured such that if you screw up once, you blew the whole freaking thing. And I don't like that. It's too much pressure. So I look at incremental improvement over time. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in a bit, all right? So we're playing the show, Lindsay, and we were on at 9:05. We were the first act in the adult portion of the program. So they had done a couple hours that was for the kids, and they had a couple of acts on that cater to kids. The kids were having a really good time. And then at 9 o'clock, they did fireworks for the kids. And at precisely 9 o'clock and 5 seconds, I'm going to say, a bunch of people in the city started putting pen to paper to complain about the noise of the fireworks and to complain about how the fireworks upset animals, dogs, cats, squirrels, raccoons, and there may be some legitimacy to that. Fireworks are very controversial these days. Now, as the drummer in the first band to go on in the adult portion of the program, I bear a certain responsibility. All right, it is a position of responsibility to be the drummer in that act. But it is beyond the scope of my responsibility. It is above, as they say, my pay scale to decide whether there are fireworks or not. The kids love the fireworks. And again, maybe there's something to this. Maybe the fireworks are not a good idea. I can't speak to that. I do know they are controversial. Was not my decision. Okay. So kids are watching the fireworks. Woo, woo. Happy New Year. La, la, la. Then, ladies and gentlemen, Lindsay and the Lonelies. And so we go out and we play. And I think we play well. It's so hard because we were there in the afternoon to do a sound check, right? Which is great. It's nice to get a sound check at all at our level, okay? We go there to do the sound check. And what that is the people front of house are mixing the way the instruments sound together and making sure everything works. getting the levels right, getting the vocals right. It's 4-part harmonies in this band. So those vocals the levels have to be right, and they have to sit well together. The other thing that they're doing, though, is that they're working on monitor mixes for the band. So everybody in the band, especially on a stage that big, for a crowd that big where there's a lot of noise, there are stage monitors, right? So I got a big speaker sitting beside me, and I will hear the rest of the band through that speaker. And so you do a sound check so that you can tell the front of house people what you want in that monitor. I know a lot of you are musicians, and you know all about this. You don't need me to say it. Problem is, you set your monitor mix in that environment where there's nobody around, there's not a lot of noise on the stage or off, and it's fine. And then you come back 5 or 6 hours later, 4 hours later, and instead of there being nobody, there's 3, 4, 5,000 people. And there's a lot of noise, and there's a lot going on, and then that monitor mix you set isn't appropriate anymore. It's not loud enough. And so I had a bit of a struggle initially trying to hear what was going on. That's a little bit unnerving, but we got it kind of sorted out with the universal hand gestures. Point at this person, pretend to play guitar, point up. You know what I mean? This is the things that you learn as you go. So we got that sorted out. We were playing well. And then the most curious thing happened, kids. I broke a drumstick. Dun, dun, dun. I am not a breaker of sticks. I do not break a lot of sticks because I do not, especially nowadays, play in bands where you're hitting all that hard. You know, you see some people's sticks at the end of the night that play in big rock bands, and they are rim shot players, and you will see that the center of their drumstick is just chewed up. Right? It's just splinters. And that's because they are rim shot players. What is a rim shot? A rim shot is a flat stroke whereby at the same time, the tip of the stick hits the center of the drum and the middle of the stick hits the rim of the drum. All right? They hit simultaneously. What that does is it has the effect of very much amplifying the shot, makes it much louder, and hitting the rim adds this bark to the snare drum sound. And it's very hard to describe in words. It's much easier to describe in sound. But if you're playing loud and you want a really loud, barking, aggressive snare drum sound, you hit rim shots. And so you look at people's drumsticks from hard rock bands or metal bands, and a lot of times the center of that stick is just chewed up because they've been smashing it against probably a metal drum rim all night long, right? Thousands of hits. I do not have that kind of wear pattern on my sticks, all right? My sticks always wear out above the shoulder, below the tip, all right? And that is a function of, it is a product of, in whatever reason, for whatever reason, the way that I play the hi-hat. There's some motion and some height at which my hi-hats sit where it's like the stick is on a lathe and it just chews away above the shoulder where the stick narrows up to the tip. It just wears out there. It's really weird. It's like the butt of my stick will remain, and then by the end of a stick's life, it'll be like a toothpick up to the tip. That's not the case. I had relatively new sticks that I was playing. They weren't chewed up at all. But two things happen. In terms of a stick break, for me, there are two styles of stick break, okay? One is tip flies off, and you don't notice that happening. You don't notice that happening until you're playing and you hit a big fill, and then you go to hit that crash cymbal, and you miss it. You just flat out miss the crash cymbal, and you're like, what just happened? That is an 18-inch crash cymbal positioned exactly where I want it. I should not be missing that. And this is going through your head as you're still playing. Like, how did I miss that? And then the stick flashes by your face and you realize an inch or 2 inches are missing from the top. Missed the cymbal because the stick ain't long enough anymore. And that's because the tip flew off. Or the top inch just broke off because it wore to a point where there was just a fail point there. And then it just pop, snapped off. Happens once in a while. The other pattern, though, which is what happened on New Year's Eve, is the split down the middle. Ever had the split down the middle? And that is a curious and unnerving thing, all right? The tip off, you notice because you missed a symbol and you shouldn't have. The split down the middle is when you're playing and suddenly your stick just goes to mush. There's no resistance anymore. So we're in the last song of our little set. It is Searching for My Cowboy. It is the first song on the record that we recorded a few years ago. Lonely is a dirty word. It's a great song. It's one of my favorite songs that I play that is an original song from anybody. Great song. Really, really love it. The big single from that record and the opening track. And during the guitar solo, played in the inimitable tone of Don Red Sky, I'm playing the ride cymbal, right? Playing. Then all of a sudden I realize my hand just goes to mush. It's like suddenly I've got spaghetti in my hand. I'm like, what is happening? It's a weird feeling. Skin crawly kind of feeling. And then I look over and I'm like, oh yeah. And the stick is two things. There's the stick, and then there is like a splinter off with the whole section leading up to the shoulder and the tip. It's two things. It's a V. It's like, oh, that's what's going on. Don't work no more. Stick is two things. Problem is, the song is still playing. I said it before. We make it look seamless, but a lot of times there's chaos happening on that stage, man. Never let them see a sweat. I got a problem, all right? Because we're coming off of that guitar solo, and we're going into a bridge, which is much quieter, and is played on the hi-hats, right? And I got this stick in my hi-hat hand that is no good no more, all right? Don't work. So I got options. All right, I can flip the stick around and use the butt, the thick part, which is still intact, on the hi-hats, which is cool and possible. Problem is, what I'm holding in the palm of my hand is two shards of wood that I'm gripping and holding together. So you are at risk, at least, of some nasty splinters. You're also at risk of slicing your freaking hand wide open. This ain't a death metal show, man. We don't want blood all over the place, and it wasn't my drum kit, so we don't want blood on anybody's drums either, you know. So I got this problem. I can do that and risk slicing my hand open, or I gotta ditch this stick and pick up another one. You know, stick drops happen all the time. Stick drops happen all the time, especially if you are playing on somebody else's kit, because things will not be set up just right. No matter what leeway you are given to move or adjust things, it will not be quite right. And all it takes, in my case, because I tend to grip the sticks pretty loosely, all it takes is one thing to be off like a centimeter, and you hit it with the stick going by, and it just flies out of your hand. Happens all the time, and so you develop this ability to continue playing the song, scoop up another stick from your stick bag, which is right beside you, or a stick holder, which is positioned where you can reach it, or sometimes people will leave a couple spare sticks on the bass drum, very accessible, in the event of. And so here I am, trying to make this transition from ride cymbal to hi-hat dynamically, from loud to quiet, not slice my hand open. So what I wound up doing is I think I flipped the stick around and played it, risking my hand for a second, and then just threw it, scooped up another stick, played on. But it's rare, very rare for me to break a stick in that way. And it was kind of weird, man. And I'm trying to read some symbolism into it. Letting go of something, breaking something, you know, I don't know. There's probably no symbolism in it. Stuff just happens, man. But it was really fun. It was really fun and really cool to play for an audience. You know, at the indie level, a lot of the time we don't get to play for a big crowd like that, especially original music. And it's just fun to do it. And in my case, super duper fun to see the growth and improvement in terms of confidence and experience. And that's really the message, kids. Really, the message is, and I've been saying this for years now, and you probably don't need me to say it again, is incremental improvement over time. Begin somewhere. That's all I'm saying is begin somewhere. Do not wait until you are a fully formed thing to begin, because you never will, because you can't become fully formed unless you begin, right? These solo episodes are not the magic, mystery, and wonder that they are without me beginning doing them not so great. You have to go through this process, and I'm still tempted to take down everything. I'm still tempted to take down everything before about episode 50, but I leave it up because despite me, there's some really good content and inspiring content, particularly in the interviews that I did, and so I leave them. And I leave them as evidence. The medium can be the message that things improve. You can look at the trajectory of my program and my delivery of said program and see improvement, over time. And that's the message. You can improve over time. I had it, hammered back to me playing that show with Lindsay and just felt really good, warmed my cockles, And it feels like right now is a good time to just do the Patreon plug. Yes, there is a Patreon page for this podcast, kids. It is patreon.com/JohnHuffPodcast. And there, for the low price, the one-tier membership price of $5 a month, Canadian, you can support the program. I do not want to run ads on this show. I do not want to do sponsorships on this show. I like the Patreon model because Patreon is voluntary. I like that it is voluntary. Ads are not voluntary. You have to listen to them, and that's okay. It's what most people do. I like Patreon. I like it because you can sign up there, and in so doing, you can say to me, man, I am entertained by your program. I am inspired by your program. I learn weird, arcane stuff in your program. I am comforted by your program. If you are inspired, comforted, educated, warms your cockles, you get something out of this show, please do consider supporting me on Patreon to offset the costs of this program and help me grow it. If you don't want to do that, that's cool. If you can't do that, that is also cool. The show will remain free and accessible wherever you enjoy fine podcasts. But if you are inclined to support, please do think about doing that, and I thank you. And I thank everybody who has done that so far. You can think of it as buying me a monthly cup of coffee. You can think of it as tipping me $1.25 for every episode that I do. I thank you for your consideration in this matter. Extra perk for patrons, I have begun to do some Patreon exclusive content. Putting up some videos, whatever. I'm thinking about more stuff that I can do. But the other thing you get as a patron currently is a discount on my new merch. Oh yeah, kids, doing a commercial for the new merch. One of the things I was doing when I was not producing an episode and not doing research on the big, important questions about playing cards is I got a whole bunch of new merch together. So we have the KT t-shirt designed by Katie Pasco of Fresh Breath, very cool. We have the Class t-shirt, which I designed. Very classy, very cool t-shirt. Cool talk, warm cockles. You can find those there. I have a selection of drinking mugs in 2 sizes, one of which features the current artwork for the show. The other, which I think is super cool, is the OG logo coffee mug. Doesn't have to be coffee. Put eggnog and rum in it. Whatever you like. Straight vodka. I don't care. The OG logo that Denny Goche drew, which is really cool. Looks great on a mug. So you can find these items at john-huff.com/shop. It's another way to support me. I don't make a whole lot of profit on these items, but a little bit. So, if you don't want to do Patreon, maybe you want to go get yourself a little bit of swag, a little bit of merch from the shop. I would appreciate that too. And as ever, you can always support by just telling your friends. sharing these episodes. Word of mouth is still the best advertising, kids. So if you like what I'm doing, if you're getting something from it, here are ways you can support. And if you want to just share the episodes, that's fabulous too, and thank you. Ratings and reviews. Let's not forget ratings and reviews. Warms my cockles when I see a 5-star rating and a positive review. And it does help the show with whatever algorithm is at work. These ratings and reviews, in some way, get me in front of more ears. And if you could do that, I would appreciate it. Takes 5 seconds. Rating, review, preferably a positive one. That's all I'm going to say. That's all the plugging for now. Because it is indeed New Year's resolution time. And I'm uncomfortable with resolutions. As I said before, way too much pressure, way too black and white. And I don't have any resolutions per se this year. Still got to do something about the phone thing. I'm spending still way too much time on my phone. It's really amazing. And you're probably like me in this, in that as soon as you get a second of downtime, a second of unoccupied time, you're instantly reaching for the phone. I'll just check Facebook real quick. There's nothing on Facebook that I want to see. I'll just check it real quick, Pick it up, and then you find yourself scrolling for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. Instagram, same freaking deal. It's like they get you. And they've made it a compulsion. It's like you don't even think about it anymore. Your hand just reaches out. Your body just does it now because it's an addiction, man. It's a tactile addiction. It's a dopamine addiction. And I continue to struggle with this. So if I have a resolution, it is to just put the dang phone down. Stop living on the phone, wasting my precious time and mental faculties and energy, burning out my dopamine receptors on the stupid effing phone. That's one thing. I was looking at what are the standard or most popular resolutions, and it's the same old stuff, man. I want to eat better. I'm going to exercise more. I'm going to save money. I'm going to spend more time with my family and friends. And how's all that going for you, kids? We're 3 days in now or 4 days in now. Have you been to the gym every day? Have you quit smoking? Have you started smoking? Maybe that's your resolution. I'm going to be more self-destructive this year. I'm going to get into social media feuds with trolls. I'm going to start smoking now so that next year I've got a really good resolution to stop. That feels like growth. Artificial growth. We're going to do a bunch of really stupid stuff and then stop it. And that's going to feel like growth. So I don't do resolutions. I don't know if you do or you don't. But I've adopted this new kind of approach, which I think is rather ingenious. And I call it the Beach Boy method. The Beach Boy method. Don't know what you want. Don't know what to improve. Don't know what to focus on in terms of self-improvement. Ask yourself the Beach Boy question. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if I got to play more golf this year? Wouldn't it be nice if I was just a little bit lighter, existentially and physically? Wouldn't it be nice if we got a different car? Wouldn't it be nice if I got a different job this year? Wouldn't it be nice if the podcast found an audience? This, I think, is kind of a playful way to approach what you might want to change or what needs to change in your life. Wouldn't it be nice if every time I got a second of downtime, my compulsion wasn't to reach for the phone? If that's something that matters to you, this question of wouldn't it be nice brings it to your attention, but brings it to your attention in a playful kind of way. It's like instead of a resolution, resolutions feel way too martial to me. Black and white. I am putting my phone down. And it feels really punitive and it feels really harsh. Whereas, wouldn't it be nice if I didn't have a compulsion to reach for my phone? It just feels lighter to me. Feels more playful. And it's a way to bring into your consciousness what you actually really want. Wouldn't it be nice if I didn't have to go to this stupid effing job that I hate every day? Whoa! Dun, dun, dun. You step back from that and you think, wouldn't it be nice This is optimistic. This is positive. There's a feel good about, wouldn't it be nice if this was different? And then you begin to identify things that you wish were different, and you can begin to take steps toward that. Wouldn't it be nice if by the end of this year I didn't smoke anymore? Instead of, I am quitting today, and then something stresses you out and you have a cigarette and you blew it and you feel as though you failed. No, it's a process. It's the same thing as being scared of a little club 10 years ago to playing in front of 3,000 or 4,000 people. Small improvements over time, and your year can be that time. So you back off smoking, let's say, gradually, or you back off your phone addiction gradually because you've identified it as a priority. Wouldn't it be nice if this wasn't the case anymore? Wouldn't it be nice if I didn't fight with my wife every day? And then you begin to look at, well, what is contributing to those fights? What needs to change about me in order for that to be different? And then that becomes your self-improvement. That becomes your resolution. Wouldn't it be nice if we could go to Mexico in November for a week? We can't afford that. Maybe you can't. But what needs to change about your spending habits or your income that would facilitate that being possible? Then all of a sudden, you've got a course for self-improvement. Well, instead of buying my lunch every day at work for $10, I'm going to start making lunches. Or instead of buying this or that every week, or instead of paying for this monthly service that I don't even use, I'm going to cut that, I'm going to bank the money, and then we're going to have a little trip in the fall. You know what I mean? So instead of resolving to do this or that or not do this or that, you begin this playful notion of, wouldn't it be nice if this reality happened? Wouldn't it be nice if I felt this way? Wouldn't it be nice if I had this thing? And then you engineer that, you reverse engineer that to, what do I need to change now in order to make that happen later? You know what I mean? I think it's way less pressure than resolutions. And so I have adopted the wouldn't it be nice approach, the Beach Boy method. That is my gift to you for 2023. So spend the next week just looking at, wouldn't it be nice if there was not so much crap around my house? Oh, let's get rid of the crap around my house. That's obviously a priority. And pay attention to when you say things like, wouldn't it be nice? Or that must be nice. Somebody in America whose ancestors invented the joker wins the $700 million Powerball lottery. Why is it one prize? Why is it not 700 prizes of $1 million? Does that not help more people? Does that not boost spending power in the economy? Why is it one prize? Don't get me started on that. I'm just the drummer in the first band. But you hear that news. Somebody won $700 million, and your first reaction is, well, that must be nice. Wouldn't that be nice? That's a clue. That's a clue, kids. You look at that and you say, well, what is it that would be nice about that? Not having the money in the bank, but what does it facilitate? I could quit my stupid effing job and start doing this thing that I actually want to do. Well, don't count on the lottery, Jack. Don't count on the lottery, Joker. But look at that information and say, well, what I really want is to not do this freaking job anymore. And so let's address that. And let's look at the behaviors or the credentials or whatever it is that stands in the way of you not doing that job and doing the thing you actually want to do. And then your resolutions, if you like, or your changes, if you like, become the product of changing that reality. Wouldn't it be nice if I had the $700 million and could quit my job? You're not going to have the $700 million, probably. Wouldn't it be nice if I could quit my job? Now that's useful, man. And so you begin to reverse engineer that. What changes do we make and how to make that happen? So take that with you this week, my friends, meine Freunde. When you're out playing euchre spiel with your buddies on the weekend, think about, wouldn't it be nice? And then, if you are looking to commit yourself to a program of self-improvement, that helps because you'll be motivated and you will be approaching it in a playful kind of way. Wouldn't that be nice? Doesn't it sound sunny? Doesn't it sound optimistic? I resolve to. And the gavel comes down. Now, wouldn't it be nice? the Beach Boy method. That is my gift to you. That is 50 minutes. I intended to cap this at 45, but here we are. Wouldn't it be nice if I could do 45-minute episodes? One quick thing before I go, I am delighted to say, and 2023 is starting off in the best possible way, because The Roth Show is back. Yes, David Lee Roth's podcast is back. It was gone for like 3 years because Dave was off doing stuff, which was a bummer because it's one of my favorite podcasts. I love spending half an hour in the mind of David Lee Roth, which is like being on an acid trip. You know, you get to the end of a Roth episode and you have been thoroughly entertained and you have no idea what he just said. But what an entertaining man. What a curious personality he is. The ultimate showman, even on audio, you know? David Lee Roth's podcast is back. I didn't even know it was coming. It just popped up in my Facebook feed when I was scrolling addictedly to my phone that there are new episodes. And so there's 2 new episodes of The Roth Show. Go listen to it if you like your single voice podcasts that are just bananas, but wildly entertaining from a charismatic and articulate and very, very intelligent man. I dig David Lee Roth's podcast and it is back. I'm delighted to tell you. So when you're done listening to me, you can go listen to Dave and then come back to me and be thrilled that you can understand, hopefully, what I'm talking about. I am going to split now. I want to thank you for hanging with me this long. One of my resolutions is to shutting up faster, not drag it out. So I'm going to do that, except to say one more thing, which is, I'll check you later. Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice if we were older? Then we wouldn't have to wait so long.